worked with hundreds of aspiring slow fashion founders over the past half decade, and I have seen it all. I'm rounding up common, costly mistakes people make in the hopes that you can avoid it, so then you can launch successfully and make a minimum of $20,000 with your first launch. So let's dive in. I'm going to give you a comprehensive overview of every single step that's involved in launching a brand and all the mistakes I've seen over the years. And lucky for you, I'm also going to give you an idea to launch complete checklists so you know exactly what you need to do to be successful. I know sometimes when you're launching a sustainable fashion brand and you're starting from scratch, you can be very overwhelmed and not know where to start. So you can snag that checklist at recloseted.com/masterclass. The link is on the screen and will be in the description box for you. At that link, you will also be able to get a free course from me. I'm going to be walking you through your business foundation and your founder foundation to ensure you are set up for success. So make sure you check out that link to get the checklist, and you can follow along as we go through this video. The first category of mistakes is around setting up your business. And this is really important because we want to make sure you're set up for success. And there are two common mistakes I see. The first one is around actually setting your business up. And I talk about this in the Launch Your Fashion Brand Masterclass, which again, you can access at recloseted.com/masterclass. But essentially, you want to find a really good lawyer and then have them incorporate your business, do your terms and conditions, and do your privacy policy. Let me break that down. So incorporating your business just means that your business is now going to be a separate legal entity from yourself. So you're you, and then your business is its own person essentially, and that really protects you from the legal perspective and can also be beneficial if you work a 9-to-5 job from a tax perspective as well. So meet with a lawyer to incorporate your business properly. I've seen a lot of people try to DIY it and just all sorts of problems come up, and I think it's really important to set it up for success. So please work with a lawyer to do that. Unless you're a lawyer yourself, then by all means, go for it. And then when it comes to contracts, you want to make sure your lawyer is going to set up your terms and conditions, which will include things like your refund policy, what to do in certain situations. So you just want to have all those terms and conditions laid out and vetted through with a lawyer. And then the privacy policy is just how your business handles private information. So this will typically sit on your website and a lawyer will be able to chat that through with you. But please do not DIY this. I've seen a lot of people try to do that. They've plagiarized other people's T's and C's and it just does not go well. So please spend the money and find someone that you trust and is very experienced and get them to help you. And then the second mistake I see under the setting up your business category is around your accounting and your finances. Please don't stick your head in the sand when it comes to your numbers. You need to know what's going on. So you need to know how much money you're making, how much you're spending, and then how much you have left over. And in doing so, you're going to be able to make sound financial decisions, which is what we want. So the thing you want to do is make sure you have some sort of system to keep track of everything. And personally at Recloseted, we use QuickBooks. We get our clients to use it. There's a reason why a lot of people use QuickBooks. It's because it's very comprehensive. And also accountants love it as well. It's very easy to use come tax season. So you want to have some sort of system set up. We'll have a link for QuickBooks down below. You'll be able to get 50% off your first 6 months. But essentially you want to have a system so that you can document everything. And then the second thing too is to have a separate account so that you can house all the taxes that you have pre-collected for the government essentially. Because when you sell something in the future and you collect taxes on behalf of the government's going to ask for it about a year in advance come the next tax season. So you don't want to be scrambling because you accidentally used up all that money. So it's a good idea to have a separate account and just have that money in there so it's ready to go. After you have set up your business foundation, the next step is to set up your foundation as a founder. This is really important because you don't want to be the bottleneck of your own business. However, that does happen more often than not because if you think about it, you're the only one right now setting up the strategy and executing it. So if you have things going on or you have limiting beliefs or something like that, then you're not going to be able to actually execute even if you have the best strategy in the world, which is why this is so important. And we also cover this in the masterclass. There are 3 common mistakes that I have seen in this section. And the first one is not adopting a growth mindset. This is so important. Like I mentioned, you do not want to be the bottleneck of your business. So that means that you need to continuously learn, seek out things to develop yourself and improve yourself and figure out where your knowledge gaps are so that you can be the best possible founder. So make sure you adopt a growth mindset. The second mistake I commonly see is people don't actually set aside time for their business and they don't pre-plan. This is really important, especially if you're side hustling your business, meaning you're working another 9 to 5 job, because you need to set aside that time and set those boundaries, because you have a lot of work on your plate that you need to get done, and you only have 24 hours in a day, so you need to figure out how to prioritize your time, how to set aside that time and protect it. That is very, very important. And the third one is just around managing your mental health. This is important because setting up a business from the ground up, from scratch, is going to take a lot of work, and it can be very overwhelming and stressful. So you want to make sure you're not constantly burning out. You want to be more proactive versus reactive about this. So make sure you take care of yourself. Make sure you know how to recharge your body. Make sure you're sleeping enough, all that jazz. But yeah, just making sure you're continuously taking care of your mental health. The next category of mistakes I wanted to talk about is around funding. Funding is so important because it is the fuel for your business. But unfortunately, people make a lot of mistakes here. The first mistake I commonly see is that they try to do every funding mechanism under the sun because they think the more they do, the more they're going to get. But I have actually found that the opposite is true. So if you're in a situation where you really need funding right now and you are trying to self-fund, you're trying to do a Kickstarter and a pre-sales, you're trying to borrow money from the bank, you're trying to get an investor, and all the different things, you are going to be really strapped for time and energy and resources, and as such, nothing's going to be done well. So instead, I always tell our clients to pick 1 to 2 funding mechanisms. Usually we recommend self-funding either through a 9 to 5 job, savings, or a contract gig, and then also pre-sales. And that works well for our clients, but do what works best for you. I highly recommend choosing just 1 to 2 funding mechanisms. The next common mistake is around customers. When aspiring slow fashion founders first start out, I know that they want to try to make as many sales as possible, and that translates into trying to target everyone because they think they need to appeal to a mass market in order to get those sales. But as a new brand without an established customer base, this is actually a really bad idea because when you try to speak to everyone, you're going to resonate with no one. And instead, if you are really targeted around your ideal customer, you get really specific and you niche down. I'm sure you've heard of the term niching down before, but it's true. Like if you niche down, if you pick a very specific target demographic, you cater the products to them, you speak directly to them, you're going to get so much more sales because you will resonate with them. And then eventually, as you grow and scale, you can then start to broaden your messaging and potentially appeal to more of the mass market. But until you've built an established customer base and until you've built an established brand, you should not do that. And as an example, a lot of our successful clients have been very targeted. We have a client that is targeting new moms, and she's done a really good job at trying to solve their problems and create products for them. Another client was targeting brides-to-be and created beautiful dresses and everything around that occasion, and she was also really successful as well. So make sure you target your ideal customer, get specific, because remember, when you try to appeal to everyone, you will resonate with no one. The next common mistake I see is around products. And again, slow fashion founders feel like with their first collection, it needs to be a 5 or a 10 or 15 or even 20 piece collection because the more they have, the more they'll make in sales. But often that's not the case. I find that the more choices and options a customer has, the more overwhelmed they feel, and sometimes they don't end up buying in the first place. But also, if this is one of your first collections or even first few collections, you still have limited time and resources. And so as such, it's really important to nail maybe just a couple pieces so that your brand can be synonymous with high quality, really thoughtful, intentional pieces. And then after that, you can grow and scale and add more. But it's really overwhelming to do too many products from the get-go. And for our clients, I actually recommend they only launch with 1 or 2 products max so that they can really knock it out of the park. Another common mistake I see is not validating a product, and this is probably one of the costliest mistakes you can ever make. So what I mean by that is the process I make our clients go through is they need to identify their ideal customer, know who they're targeting, and then really get to know them through market research. So that could be a survey or an interview, but figure out what their pain points are, what their challenges are, and then from that, you then co-create a solution with them, meaning that you will work with them, you will collaborate with them, and you will discuss what they need in their life to solve that problem. Because when we approach products in a mindset of trying to solve a problem and add value to people's lives versus just making another sweater or another dress or another pair of pants that we all really don't need, then that's when you can actually create something that people will want to buy. You will obviously be more successful. So make sure you validate your products and you co-create your solution with your ideal customer. A lot of people don't do that, and then what happens is they will launch and there will be crickets, and then they're freaking out because they have so much unsold inventory that they're dealing with. And I don't want this to be you. I once talked to founders that discovered me after they launched, and they had sank hundreds of thousands of dollars into inventory, into these t-shirts and these jeans, and they weren't selling because they didn't really talk to their ideal customer and didn't create a product that was differentiated, and they were freaking out. And I don't want this to be you, so please validate your products ahead of time. And the next category of mistakes I want to talk about is around designing your products. So the first mistake I see is that if you don't have a fashion background or a fashion education, then do not DIY this. Don't do it yourself because it's going to be an uphill battle. You're probably not going to do it properly and it's going to have to be redone by professionals anyways. So save yourself the time and the heartache and just find, hire, and trust experts. It's really important to find the right people though, that being said, so do your due diligence and take your time with it. So don't DIY it. You really need to hire, find, and trust experts. And when it comes to your materials, I commonly find that a lot of first-time founders try to use as many materials as possible, but keeping it simple is key. Ideally, if you're only launching with 1 to 2 products like I recommended, you can use one material for that one product or the 2 of them, and that way it can just make your life so much easier, and you can try to hit higher quantities as well, which will give you cost savings. So stick to one material if it's your first few collections and just try to really keep it simple. When it comes to your manufacturer, keep it simple. Try to just work with one for your first few collections and make sure you take the time to do your due diligence, vet them, get samples of work, ask for portfolios, ask for references, and really make sure you're comfortable with the quality of the work, but then also how they treat their garment workers as well. It is on you to do your due diligence, especially if you're not working with someone like us or someone else to give you trusted connections. So take the time to do your due diligence and find the perfect partners. The next category of mistakes I wanted to talk about is around branding and marketing. So with branding, this is really important because this differentiates your business and your brand from the competitors and from the rest of people. And of course, we're going to take the time to create a validated and differentiated product, but your brand also really will excite people and get people to buy from you. If you think about the last time you supported a business or you bought from a brand, it's probably because a big portion of you liked their brand and you associated with it. So it's really important to figure out what your brand stands for. And you can develop a brand overnight by having a logo, having a font, and having colors and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, what really allows a brand to transcend and just be a strong, established household name is time. And being very diligent and cohesive and just aligned with the brand over time is important because repetition is key and you want to be consistent with what your brand stands for. If you think about an analogy of a bouquet of flowers, let's pretend your brand is a bouquet of flowers. We want it to be perfect, but even if just one flower in that bouquet is wilting or the petals have fallen off, it really affects the image and the aesthetic of the entire bouquet, right? And your brand is the exact same thing. It's really, really important that you nurture it and you take the time to grow it and develop it over time. So please don't make the mistake of thinking that your branding is just logos, just typography and colors. That's not the case. It needs to be something that you embody. It needs to be values you live by, and you actually are consistently adhering to them over time. A common mistake when it comes to marketing is not taking the time to build your community at least 6 months in advance. When you launch, you want to sell out, you don't want to have crickets, and as such, you can't just have your family members and your friends in your community. You actually need to intentionally gather up your ideal customers so that again, when you launch, there's an exciting, raving community of ideal customers waiting to buy. And that takes time. So with our clients, I always get them to build their community at least 6 months in advance. They need to nurture their audience. They need to share the behind the scenes. They need to educate them, give lots of value so that when they do launch, you can sell out and make that 20K. So please don't make the mistake of waiting until the last minute to do your marketing. It is very important to start it ASAP so that you can grow and nurture and build that community. Another common marketing mistake I see is that people think in order to build a big community, they need to be on every platform under the sun. And actually, the opposite is true. If you have limited time, limited resources, and limited energy, and if you've watched any of my other YouTube videos, you know that I am a strong advocate, especially when you're first starting out, to just be on one social media platform and couple that with email marketing. It's very important to be selective and obviously choosy with the one platform you're going to go all in on. You want to make sure your ideal customer is actually on it and they utilize it so that you can actually reach them. This is strategic because in order for someone to follow you, you want to make sure the content you're putting out is very valuable. You are making sure that you are putting your all into it, and that takes a lot of time, energy, and resources. And so when you're first starting out, it's important to kind of put all your eggs in that one social media platform. So then that way you can actually grow a big enough community to be able to make revenue. And then once you're able to grow and scale, you can be on more platforms as you potentially hire help. But when you first start out, just do one social media platform, do email marketing. And emails are important because it is a way for you to own some of that customer data. You're not going to be at the beck and call of algorithms. So I've talked about it previously on this channel before, so I'm not going to go in depth, but please don't make the common mistake I see being on every social media platform under the sun, because that's just not going to be a very good use of your time and you're not going to be able to grow any of them. A common mistake I see when it comes to websites is some founders, when they're first starting out, they will sink thousands and thousands of dollars into a custom coded website, and you do not need that from the beginning. You can honestly, if you're doing a fashion brand, just sign up for Shopify. Shopify is great. They are a really good platform to help you grow and scale. I would definitely recommend that over some of the other ones because it is meant for e-commerce. So just sign up for Shopify and buy a theme. There's some amazing themes out there. You can try a few of them, see what's going to work for you and your branding, and then you can just customize it. And that will just be max, let's say like $500. Versus I just don't think it's a good use of your money to get a custom coded site. So at the beginning, you don't need that. Just sign up for Shopify, get a theme, and get going. I also wanted to talk about pre-sales. So a couple common mistakes here. The first one is that for brands that are first launching, I really don't think it's a good idea to do an inventory model, meaning that you're going to, let's say, have 100 sweaters or 200 pairs of pants that you're trying to sell, because you just don't know what your demand is yet. And when you don't know that, it can be kind of risky to think, it can be quite risky to sink tens of thousands of dollars into your inventory, not knowing if it's going to sell. Not to mention, that's not very sustainable, because if it doesn't sell, you're just going to have all this sitting there. So instead, I always get our clients to do pre-sales, especially for their first few collections. If you don't know what pre-sales is, it basically just means your customers are going to prepay you for a garment up front, and that way you can collect the cash up front. That can be a great funding mechanism for you, but you also know exactly how much to produce because you're going to get those orders ahead of time. So that is key. I really highly encourage you to consider pre-sales, especially if it's your first few collections. And then the next mistake I see around pre-sales is not executing it properly. So how I get my clients to do this is they're going to build their community over 6+ months. We already talked about this. But during this period, you're going to make sure you create 1 to 2 validated products that are extremely high quality. You're going to work with the design team, source the material, source the manufacturer, and then get it ready. You're going to make samples in every single size, in every single color. That is important, and I know this costs a lot of money. So that's why, again, when you first start out, I always get our clients to launch with 1 to 2 products. So we're going to do all of that in the half a year. And then 1.5 months before you actually launch, you're going to do a pre-launch, meaning that you're going to start to warm up your audience, you're going to build buzz, you're going to build hype, and then you're going to do some launch events. I always get our clients to do launch events because those sell really well. And then during your actual launch phase, that is when people can do pre-orders. You want to make it very explicit and very clear that these are pre-orders and they're going to potentially have to wait a couple months. But during the pre-order launch phase, you're only going to have it open for 2 weeks. That is it. This is important because if you have your pre-sales open all the time, you may have some weeks where you make 2 pre-sale orders, or you may have some where you make 50. It's just very up and down and you can't really control it. And your life is literally going to revolve around fulfilling these orders, and it's going to be such a nightmare. So instead, by having it controlled in a 2-week window, you can collect and batch up all the orders, and then you can go and fulfill it. Not to mention, from a customer buying perspective, psychologically, if they know they only have those 2 weeks to buy, they're not going to procrastinate, so that you can actually get some people that may have never bought because they may have forgotten if you had your pre-sales open all the time. So highly recommend you do that pre-sales 2-week launch window. And then after you close it, you fulfill those orders, and you can always relaunch again. A lot of our clients do that. So yeah, make sure you execute pre-sales and you execute it in the manner I just outlined. And finally, when it comes to launching your brand, there's a series of mistakes I commonly see as well. The first one is launching on the first day and then never talking about it again. This is such a detrimental mistake because you need to be proud of your launch. You have worked so hard to get your brand up to this point. So you need to be shouting from the rooftops that people can buy your products, whether it's, buying them or on pre-sale, but people need to know about it. And on average, people need to see something at least 7 times, even sometimes 10 times before they buy. If you only talk about it on the first day and you never bring up your launch again, you are doing yourself and your brand a disservice. So you need to have enough content for that. And then the next mistake I commonly see is not pre-planning and pre-executing as much of your launch as possible. What I mean by that is you need to make sure you have your strategy and your plan locked and loaded. We handhold our clients through that, but in your case, you will need to develop that yourself. And then because you're going to be pushing out content every single day during that pre-launch phase and during that 2-week launch, it's a lot, I know. And so that's why it's important to pre-plan all of it and pre-execute it, schedule everything so it's ready to go. I do not want you to be in a situation where you're waking up every morning trying to figure out what to post. That is not going to be very efficient for you. So please pre-plan it and pre-execute it and schedule. Another common mistake I see is not selling. And this is crucial. I've spoken to a lot of founders that were disappointed they didn't meet their launch goal, but upon further investigation, we realized it was because they weren't really selling. And if you don't sell, you're obviously not going to make sales. If this is your first time selling, know that this is a skill that takes time and you will get better over time. So just have that expectation that you may suck for the first couple of times you try to sell, but over time you are going to get better. And when it comes to sales, don't think of it as being sleazy or don't think of it as you're being awkward, because if you truly do the work and you create a product that is validated and solves a pain point and a problem for your ideal customer, you are actually doing them a service by telling them about it and introducing them to it because they need it, right? Versus if you didn't do that and you're just making another sweater or a pair of jeans or whatever, and people don't necessarily need it, then yeah, of course you may feel a little bit awkward selling it because you yourself don't believe in it. So it's really important that you work on your limiting beliefs if you have any around sales, and just know that you need to sell in order to meet your launch goals. That's just common sense. And those are the common mistakes I see aspiring slow fashion founders make. I hope that now you won't make those same mistakes, and if you haven't already, please download the Idea to Launch complete checklist. We'll give you everything you need to do, as well as an amazing brand new free course, and you can get that all at recloseted.com/masterclass. Link is on the screen, it's in the description box, and I really hope that if you're trying to launch a sustainable fashion brand, you avoid these mistakes so that you can be as successful as possible. Together, let's transform the harmful fashion industry.